שבת,
שבת ה'.
פרק א', משנה ה'. מכאן ועד סוף פרקנו, from here until the end of this chapter, עוסקות המשניות, we're going to deal with משניות, בדיני התחלת מלאכה בערב שבת, בזמן שהיא נגמרת בשבת. We're going to deal, you're going to start the job before Shabbat, and the job is going to end in Shabbat. So that's the idea. For example, he's going to give examples, we don't need to. ונחלקו בהם בית שמאי ובית הלל, and there's going to be disagreement between the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. We already know the halacha, but at least we want to understand what the two ways of thinking are. So don't just think Beit Hillel is correct and Beit Shammai is wrong, because that's what we do. Just have in mind what's the logic of Beit Shammai. Where is he coming from? What's his logic? Because it still makes sense. So let's see. Beit Shammai אומרים, the house of Shammai said, אין שורין במים בערב שבת. You're not going to take in the water, you're not going to put anything in the water, דיו, ink. סממנים שעושים מהם דיו, all kinds of plants that you make from them ink. They used to take blueberries, blackberries, some other kinds that used to boil them in water, and then ink used to be made out of them. וסממנים שעושים מהם צבע, or other kinds of things that you make from them coloring. וקרשינים, also you don't do this with קרשינים. What are קרשינים? Moshe would know. I don't know, but you should know.
זה מאכל בהמה.
Yeah, it's min קטניות, it's a type of קטניות.
לבהמה.
Yeah, it's a...
שם לחם, עושה להם, אבל
או...
אני לא יודע אם זה...
לחם לא שווה.
מין קטניות, it's a kind of קטניות, שמשתמשים בהם, that you use them, לאחר ששורים אותם במים. In other words, the animals can eat them when they're dry. It's too dry for them. So you put them in the water.
זה מה שמשה עושה.
Yeah, you do that, it's a thing, that's קרשינים.
זה לא קרשינים, אבל זה לחם מייבש כזה.
לחם יבש. Same idea. They can't eat it dry, so you give it to them wet.
אז אסור לעשות את זה שישי אחרי צהריים?
If we're going to see soon. Beit Shammai says you're allowed to. Yeah? Ela, it says the only way you're allowed to do this is what? Is if they're going to be ready before Shabbos comes in. In other words, you can't start it 2 minutes before Shabbat when you know it takes 2 hours for the process. That's what Beit Shammai says. You can't start it 2 minutes before Shabbat when you know the process is going to take 2 hours.
And they don't give you a reason why.
They're going to. אלא כדי שישור מבעוד יום. Unless they're going to be prepared when it's still Friday. אלא אם כן יש זמן עדיין שיתקלחו מבעוד יום. שסוברים בית שמאי, that let's see, what is the logic of בית שמאי? Let's see if we agree with them or not. At least logically, it says, אדם מוזהר על שביתת כליו בשבת. It says a person is warned that his vessels shouldn't do work on Shabbat. That's what Beit Shammai says. It says it's not only your animals are not allowed to work on Shabbat, not only you are not allowed to work on Shabbat, your laptop is also not allowed to work on Shabbat. Your hammer.
But your pot is vessel too.
We're going to discuss that. It's a very good question. How Beit Shammai will deal with that problem. Yeah? Your vessels are not allowed to work on Shabbat. That's what he says. כשם שהוא מוזר על שביתת בהמתו, just the same way he is warned on his animal not working, כלומר שגם הכלים צריכים לשבות ממלאכה בשבת. According to him, all the vessels also, there's an obligation for them not to do any work on Shabbat. ולכן, and therefore, אסור שיתחיל אדם בשריית הסממנים או הקרשינים בערב שבת. And therefore, a person is not allowed to start making the food soft or making ink unless it's going to be completely done in Friday night אלא אם כן יש שהות שתיגמר שרייתה לפני שבת. Only if the ink is going to be ready before Shabbat, then you're allowed to do it. But if the ink is not going to be ready before Shabbat and it's going to become ready only on Shabbat, you're not allowed to do it. That's what Beit Shammai is there. We still don't know his logic. Hopefully we'll know it after we learn Beit Hillel. We'll understand the logic of Beit Shammai. Ubeit Hillel matirim. But the house of Hillel says, don't worry, you started before Shabbat. I don't care if you started 2 seconds before Shabbat and it's a process that takes 5 hours. As long as you started before Shabbat, you're fine. That's what Beit Hillel says. You're allowed to put a timer, right? In 5 seconds before Shabbat, and then it's going to go on Shabbat. It's not your problem.
You put the cholent anyway.
It's not,
You put the cholent, you put
the cholent, Beit Shammai agrees also. I mean, we're going to see how he deals with it when we get to that. Ubeit Hillel matirim, and the house of Hillel permits לשרות במים בערב שבת, דיו וסממנים וקרשנים. בית הלל permits to put in the water the dry food, or to put ink inside water, as long as it's going to be ready before Shabbat, even if it's not going to be ready before Shabbat. אפילו לא תיגמר שרייתה מבעוד יום, even if the job is not going to be ready on Friday, אלא משתחשך, it's only going to become ready when it's going to become dark. שלדעת בית הלל, שלום עליכם, that according to the house of Hillel, אדם מוזהר אומנם על שביתת בהמתו. A person is warned on his animals not working. It says, what's the reason? Beit Hillel says, even an animal should be able to walk. It's only you not allowed to walk. It says the only reason we're not letting an animal walk, שלדעת בית הלל, אדם מוזר אומנם על שביית בהמתו, it says he's warned on his animal not walking. Why? שיש בצער בעלי חיים, because it has pain. Work is hard.
כתוב בתורה.
Yeah, okay.
לא, תשבות אתה,
ובתך
וגרך, וזה אשר בשעריך.
Yeah,
למה הוא לא מביא את זה?
we'll see how Beit Hillel deals with that subject soon. אבל אינו מוזהר על שביתת כליו. But he is not warned on שביתת כליו. Beit Hillel is giving you the reason why it says בהמתך. He says the only reason בהמתך is actually allowed to walk on Shabbat.
ביתך.
Your animals are actually allowed to walk on Shabbat. Because they have pain, God says, don't let them walk. But if they wouldn't have pain, even Beit Hillel would say, it's not a problem.
but I חולק עליהם.
What?
אני לא מסכים, הוא אומר, שכתוב בשבת בצהריים, you have a kiddush, and you say, שבת אתה ואמתך ובהמתך וכל אשר...
And Beit Hillel explains it. He's going to explain to you very nicely. He's going to say, you should know that בהמתך, God actually would have allowed you. The only reason he doesn't allow you is because they have pain. That's why he told you, בהמתך, not to.
that's the reason.
That's the reason why בהמתך no. You...
They don't bring the Torah.
Yeah, you is it, and by the way, maybe it's the same reason for you also. Maybe it's the same reason for the Eved also. Since it's hard work, it takes energy. It's Tzar Balei Chaim also on the person. That's the reason. That's what it looks like Beit Hillel is saying. Has nothing to do with Gzerat HaKatuv. It actually makes sense according to Beit Hillel.
ביום ראשון זה לא צער בעלי חיים? On Sunday it's not צער בעלי חיים?
On Sunday there's an inyan of working. You and your animals are working, and it's allowed to be working. Because God says, Sheshet Yamim Ta'avod, 6 yam you should do work. If God wouldn't say it, it's true, maybe you wouldn't be able to work yourself, but God told you specifically, go to work.
Even if there's pain.
Even if there's pain, that's right. Even if there's pain. This is what it looks like.
Okay.
ובתוספתא, in a Tosefta, we're going to... We are Aleph Hey. Shabbat Aleph Hey. ובתוספתא מבואר טעם מחלוקותם. In the Tosefta it explains the reason for the disagreement. שבית שמאי דורשים את הכתוב. It says you're going to see they're both looking in the same verse, but they're going to understand it differently. They look at what? There's a verse in Shmot, ששת ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך. It says 6 days you should work, and you should do all your work. Beit Shammai is going to tell you, you know what? Look at the words. What does it mean? All your work should be done when?
In the hall.
In the 6 days.
In the Shabbos.
You see, in the 6 days. It says it specifically in the Torah.
Okay.
All the days
days.
should. Let's read it again. 6 days you should work. ועשית כל מלאכתך, and you should do during the 6 days all your work. In other words, don't leave some work for Shabbos. Therefore, if your vessels are doing work, it's a problem. שתהא כל מלאכתך גמורה מערב שבת. It means that all your work has to be done before Shabbos. And he shows you in the verse. That's his logic. Very, very good logic. We don't go by him. But the logic, go argue with him now.
I argue. I tell him, so what I'm going to do about the children?
He's going to solve you. So he tells you, first of all, he can tell you, don't do chont, to tell you allowed to do chont. Where in the Torah you see?
No.
That's what he's going to tell you.
You can eat
But
chont.
but
I
he,
know people like that.
yeah, but he is
In
going.
Israel.
He actually permits to do chont. We see soon why.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
but he doesn't have a problem with
I
it.
need to understand why he permitted children.
That's unimportant right now, not for our case. For our case, you just need to remember, we're going to discuss the chont soon. But for our case, just concentrate on the fact that the verse specifically says, according to him, that you're not allowed to have any work done during Shabbat. Yeah? ובית הלל דורשים את הכתוב. בית הלל look at the same verse. So how do they permit you? Beit Hillel looks at exactly the same words and they permit you. How do they permit you? It says, ששת ימים תעשה מעשיך. It says, look at the word. ששת ימים, they look at another verse. He looks at the verse, ששת ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך. 6 days you should work and all your work should done. And Beit Hillel is looking at another verse. Which verse are they looking at? ששת ימים תעשה, that you should do your deeds. You, specifically the mitzvah goes on whom? And you. If it gets done by something else, that's not my problem. So Beit Hillel is learning the laws of Shabbat from a different verse. Mm-hmm. He's not learning it from that verse. He's learning it from a different verse. And now you're going to ask Beit Hillel, what are you going to do with his verse? So he says, you learn something else from this verse. Yes, another teaching. And you ask Beit Shammai, what do you learn from Hillel's verse? So he says, I learned something else from that teaching. Each one is going to go, and that's the way it goes. But each one has his things. עשה אותה כל שישה, ובשבת אסור לך לעשות. בית הלל says, you should do all 6 days, אבל מה שנעשה מאליו בשבת מותר, but whatever is done from Shabbat by itself is permissible. And now going back to Aryeh's question, we do know that Beit Shammai allows you to cook on Shabbos, because only the tzdukim don't allow to have the chont on the fire on Shabbos. But Beit Shammai for sure allows. So the question is, how does he allow you to cook on Shabbos when the vessels are not allowed to do work?
He's specifically saying, no, don't do it.
When the vessels are not allowed to do, your vessels are not allowed to do work. So it says, Beit Shammai has a way to do it. It says, according to Beit Shammai, it says, before, no, it's still you're not allowed to do. The verse says you're not allowed to. No. Yeah, it says, it's not going to be your work. How is it not going to be your work? Beit Shammai says, before Shabbat, a Jew has to mafkir all his vessels. So he says, what do you do before Shabbat? Before Shabbat, like we do in Pesach, we sell all our vessels to a non-Jew, and then it's not our vessels who do work, it's somebody else's vessels that do work. And then it's not a problem. And that's the way, by the way, that's the way Beit Shammai holds on chont. Says the only reason why you're allowed to have chont, he says, is only if you before Shabbat, gave all your, like we do in Pesach, gave all your vessels to a non-Jew.
So
that's the only way you can do it.
You're permitted to then put before Shabbos. I tell Beit Shammai, I tell him, okay, if you got a permit for this, you got the hater, you sell your vessels. Anyway, this vessel is sold. Before Shabbos, I can do it.
Only for food. Only for food.
Only for food.
Yeah.
Because
it's
human being. Not only for food. Only for food, it's the food, the behemah,
it's only for food because there's another verse in Shabbat where it says, Ochel Nefesh. Yeah, but that's, and I think it's not us.
אני מבין עכשיו פחות או
Yeah.
יותר את ה...
That's
We
the
have
idea.
to understand the logic here.
Yeah, but again, the
I
idea
like
of...
בית הלל.
You like Beit Hillel, okay. But the logic of Beit Shammai, he has a verse to rely on.
Okay,
And the
definitely.
verse that he's looking at is better. When you're looking at that verse, Beit Hillel is going to have a problem. And Beit Hillel will look at that verse and he will explain it in a different way than the simple way. But he will have to explain it. Okay.
I can explain this. 6 ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך.
Yeah, how?
I can, that you don't do any מלאכה. You did it before Shabbos. And now the מלאכה היא נעשית בעצמה.
Yeah,
I can
ועשית...
tell בית שמאי.
Yeah, ועשית מלאכתך. You don't need the word call. Call
Oh,
means...
לרבות?
No, call means the entire job.
Oh!
The entire job.
Even the finish.
Even the finish.
That's why the call.
That's the call. And you stuck with it,
I
it's Beit
see.
Hillel.
Okay.
Beit Hillel will have to
Okay.
give... Beit Hillel will have...
That's what I need to learn.
Yeah.
אתה מבין? לכל, שם יש את ה...